Hi, Misha here, and this is going to be a relatively quick black box to clear up an issue. If you came here from the main channel, this is my personal channel, where sometimes I put more opinion-oriented things, or just talk about my hobbies and other interests outside of the 2A community in firearms. And in this video, I wanted to talk about the recent release of the mini Beryl M1 pistol and the Beryl 7.62S M1 rifle, M1 carbine. Fun fact, when I titled that video and I put M1 carbine, I didn't even think about World War II M1 carbine. I just thought M1, Model 1, and then I chose carbine over rifle only because it had a 16-inch barrel, and I guess I was just thinking, well, the Archer 01 that came out through IO earlier had the 18-inch barrel. I don't know, and one of those fun things. Anyway, these came out, and very quickly there was some information posted on AK Forums, AK Files, and even I think ARFCOM being claimed by an individual or two who said he was from Poland, that these guns were not manufactured by Fabryka Broni, FB in Radom Poland. He claimed that they were manufactured by WBP, which is in Radom, Poland, and only the FB name was put on the receiver. And that kind of got taken to the point where some were actually claiming that these were not even made in Poland, but rather Nigeria, even though they're made in Poland. At least that's what it says on them. So, even though I was 99.999% sure I knew the truth, I contacted the owner of Atlantic Firearms, one of the partners in getting these imported along with Arms of America, to ask him just to confirm what I already knew was true. A bit ironically, he had much the same opinion and thought. Even though he knew the truth, he contacted FB in Radom Poland and said, I need an official statement and I need this laid out factually, no ambiguity. What's going on here? Are you making these? And luckily, they very quickly issued an official company statement, company letter. And it has a few points. Number one, they say the mini Beryl and the Beryl rifle, Beryl carbine, are made at Fabryka Broni in Radom, Poland. Clear and simple. Number two, these guns are made on the FB production line using FB parts by FB workers. 100% the work is done in-house. This is a true FB product. Number 3 and number 4 kind of come together. Number 3, they say that out of the 135 major components in the rifle or pistol, 130 are made by FB Radom. That is to say, the parts themselves are machined, molded, what have you, FB Radom. Number 4, about those 5 other parts. Those are actually subcontracted to WBP, at least at this time, because they have the parts on hand. And this actually gels very nicely. Years ago on the main channel, we did an interview at WBP right as the Fox and other guns were starting to hit the market. And in that, WBP said that they worked closely and were on good terms with FB Radom. Now, we know that the Lynx, the Mini Jack, and the Fox are all built with some FB parts, namely the 16-inch, in the case of the Fox, cold hammer forged chrome line barrel. That's an FB product. But WBP also said in that interview that they were a subcontractor for FB Radom, providing parts as needed. So that actually means that WBP was being completely honest, and that FB is being completely honest. So they make 130 out of 135 parts in the FB factory, with 5 parts subcontracted to WBP. This is actually a very high number of internally made parts. If you were to look at U.S. companies, Ruger, Smith & Wesson, Colt, Palmetto State Armory, I guarantee you the number of subcontracted parts they use is higher. Much higher. And anyway, WBP is an experienced company. And what are those 5 parts? I don't know, but I suspect a few. For example, on the Beryl rifle, I suspect that one of the parts is because they have to come over as a sporter. It would be a thumbhole stock. And since WBP actually invested several thousands of dollars to make a mold for the skeletonized stock, why would FB Radom do the same? Why not just use WBP stock? So I suspect one of the 5 parts is the skeletonized stock. If you look at the Arms of America listing for this gun, you can see it. Similarly, it's quite possible that 3 other parts are actually the semi-automatic trigger group. I mean, WBP is making them for the U.S. market already. Why would FB, instead of making their own components, not just buy some semi-automatic trigger groups from them? As to the others, and again, this is just pure speculation. You know, could be things like mag catch, maybe a rear trunnion, maybe a safety selector. You know, things like that. Things that seem to be definitely FB made. The receiver, the barrel, the takedown mechanism, the top cover because it has the unique stamping for the left side selector there. Things like that. And number 5, and the final point, FB is very clear. Fabryka Broni is the sole owner of the technical data package TDP for the Beryl series, no matter the caliber. They own it. Now they might license it out to someone like Nigeria, but they are the sole owner and user. They have the production line, they have the tooling, they have the drawings, and they have all the rights to the name Beryl or Archer or what have you. And this is kind of important just to bring up because another part of this claim is that the Beryl cannot be from FB because they no longer have the capacity to manufacture AK firearms. That they gave that up and that they only make the MSBS, the Grot, these days. So, this is patently untrue. I want to give the benefit to the doubt, and I want to say this is a misunderstanding. Years ago, when the factory reformed after communism, around 2003, give or take, they did say in a public statement and other things that they sold off their production line for the AKM and AKMS, the original 7.62x39 caliber traditional Soviet guns. However, they were just ramping up at that time to make the Beryl, the WZ-96. This is extremely evident. The Beryl really didn't start to come online in any real numbers till 1999, and in fact, the version that's in current military service and that our semi-automatics are based on, the WZ-96C, was not introduced until around 2009. And they were still making changes up until that point. They just don't consider the Beryl line to be a traditional AK because it is based on the Tantal, which itself is based on the AKM, so they kind of view it as a couple of generations removed from the Soviet design. This also makes sense from a legal point of view because if they said, hey, this is an AKM derivative, then companies in Russia or elsewhere could put their hand out saying, money please. So the more they differentiate their gun from the original Russian, it just makes out to have a lot of sense legally and financially. So they very much have been making Beryls for the Polish military. In fact, they still had ongoing contracts up through 2019 for the Polish military. And since the military has over 80,000 Beryls and mini Beryls in service as of early 2021, those are going to need to be serviced, and so therefore FB is still making parts and refurbishing existing rifles. They also updated many of the older WZ 96As and Bs to the newer 96C standard. And on top of that, as you know, there's the Nigerian contract. Beginning in 2014, Nigeria and FB started to work on an agreement. In 2015, the first 1,000 guns were delivered to Nigeria for kind of field testing, and then 2 more batches of 500 were delivered. And then in 2018, a production license to build the gun for the Nigerian military was issued to that nation. This does not mean that FB was relinquishing rights to the production line. It just meant that they were licensing it out, much as Colt has licensed out production for, say, the M16 family to nations like Korea in the past. You know, those Colt turnkey factories. FB did much the same. And the Nigerian guns are actually the Beryl M762, which is, of course, chambered for 7.62x39. When FB designed the gun beginning in 1995, the Polish military knew that it wanted 5.56x45, 5.56 NATO, 223 Remington. However, FB wanted this to be a commercial success, a family, so they proposed the Beryl M545, of course in 5.45x39 M74, and the Beryl M762 in 7.62x39 M43, the Soviet rounds. Well, the M545 never took off. There were no buyers, so outside of a few samples and prototypes, it was never put into widespread production. And it looked like for a while the same fate would befall the M762, but then the Nigerian contract happened. Now, 2,000 guns is not something to sneeze at for a relatively small company like FB, but being able to sell the production rights to Nigeria, that was a big coup. That helped them out financially. And that's where this, I can understand the confusion with these being subcontracted to WBP might come from, but the notion that the Beryl 7.62 SM1 rifle is made in Nigeria and just falsely roll marked made in Poland, that is laughable. That is patently not true. That would be illegal on everyone's part. FB's, Arms of America, and that's not how they play the game. FB is a stand-up company. Arms of America is above repute. They have a good reputation. That would be falsity, complete and utter. And I have to say, if it was truly a Nigerian gun, if anything, I think that would up the desirability, because it's just always kind of interesting when and if ever we get guns out of Africa, because there are so few on the market. But anyway, the Nigerian thing is easily proven false. And if you look on FB's website, they still offer sporter versions in Poland of these guns, some automatics. Even though their military contracts are over, at least seemingly so, the idea that they're only producing the Grot is also not supported. They've been working on the Grot for a very long time, over 10 years. And it wasn't until 2017 that really the first ones were kind of ready for field trials, but even those tended to go to more of the border guards. It wasn't until at least 2019, maybe even early 2020, that a few standard military units in Poland started to acquire the Grot. And that's why coming into 2021, there are still 80,000 Beryls in inventory. Right now, there are about 65,000 Grots on order, but this is very far from completed. So it's going to be a good number of years before the Grot replaces the Beryl. And some sources in Poland, and they seem quite credible, are saying that upon further testing, the Grot is maybe not quite ready for prime time. Maybe it needs a few more revisions, a few more updates. And that's okay, because again, the Beryl, even though it was based on the AK system, the Tantal, it required a few updates too. If you look at a Beryl from the original year, 1997, versus one from, say, 2010, there were several changes. A few things done to improve reliability, like a larger ejection port, but most done to improve ergonomics, like a better pistol grip, a better buttstock, an enlarged mag catch, and extended shelf safety, things of that nature. They also changed the magazines a couple of times to make them lighter weight and more dependable, more durable. So it takes a gun time, and FB is going it alone. Most European nations today are either using their older guns or they're buying guns from the US or Russia or Germany or what have you. So the fact that FB Radom is actually trying to design their own gun, the Grot, is still quite admirable, and I hope them the best. But the Beryl, while it is starting to look a little aged, is a very tested platform. It's seen service in Afghanistan, Iraq, and a handful of places, plus now some use in Africa by the Nigerian army too. So I hope that helps kind of clear things up. These are true FB products, and FB has been very forthright and very clear about them being made in-house, and tested and finished in-house. And that's another thing. Jay and I are both huge fans of WBP, not because we just want to be fanboys, but through long years of experience. I remember when the WBP kits came in, I was a little skeptical. I didn't think they were bad, but and when the Fox came in, we had one, and we've run the crap out of it. You can still see it in some recent videos. Over the last, I think, 4 years for sure, we've put thousands of rounds through it and have never had a hiccup. And that's the original pre-production model that I have. Jay picked up one of the first batch of production models and has run just as many, if not even more, rounds through it. So we have 2 Fox guns here that have seen thousands of rounds each. I don't think we've gotten to 10,000 rounds with the 2 combined, but if you told me it was 8,000, 8,500, I would not be surprised. And again, reliability has been stellar. But we're also big fans of FB Radom. I first picked up an Archer when they went to the Gen 2s and corrected some of the issues with the Gen 1s, including lowering the price. And I was a big fan of it. And I had to take a little time and talk Jay into getting one. And I remember the first day he got his Archer, he was a little disappointed. He went out and, that was back when they were really pumping up, saying this is a 1 MOA AK, which around 2012 was a pretty big claim. He took it to the local indoor range, which we usually shoot out, as you know, but he really wanted to see what he could do with it. And he called me rather kind of peeved. He was not getting 1 MOA at all. He was getting more like 2.5, 3 MOA. Well, it turns out he was shooting Tula ammo. Once we even put Wolf in it, it tightened up a bit to about 1.75 to 2.25 MOA. And then using brass cased ammo, it really tightened up to 1.5 MOA, even down to 1 MOA with the correct ammo. So now it's one of his absolute favorites too. In fact, we had the Arsenal Sam 5 out a couple of range trips ago, and even though that's a fine gun, he still prefers his Archer. Me, it's still too close to call. I really love both. He also owns, and I also own, a Galil Ace in 5.56, and I think there we both agree we prefer the Polish gun more. So we know the Archer. In fact, I've ended up owning 2. When the Gen 3 came out with the 3rd rivet and the selector, I had to pick one of those up. And it didn't hurt that they were kind of blowing them out pretty cheap back then, around 2014, 2015, for about $900 with the rail. So we're familiar, is my point, with the WBP look and the FB look. And what I'm getting at here if you look at these new guns, the mini Beryl pistol and the Beryl 7.62 SM1 rifle, they don't look like WBP products. By that I mean the font is different. If you look at the font on the mini and the rifle, they look like what we used to see on the Archer. If you look at the riveting pattern, how they rivet, the way they crush their rivets, WBPs are very nice, but they're just a little bit different shaped in style compared to that of the FB guns. And likewise, the finish used. WBP uses a paint style finish. And it is the paint finish that was used on Polish military guns and that FB has used for many years too. But FB tends to do kind of a mix of some parts being painted, and it's more of a matte look to it, and some parts just being phosphated, parkerized. And so when you look at the mini Beryl and the Beryl rifle, they definitely have a finish that matches the one found on the original Archers, not the one found on the Fox, the Lynx, the Mini Jack. And, you know, you can just kind of tell who makes a gun. I know that's hard to quantify in a video, but, you know, picking up, feeling it, the style, the way things are done. The WBP products and the FB products just feel different. Both very high quality. One thing I kind of likened it to, if you pick up, say, an FEG SA-85 from the 80s, and you pick up an Arsenal, say maybe an SLR 95 from the 90s, they both are high quality AKs. I think most people would agree. But you could also easily tell one from the other, not just in terms of their features, but just the styling of the guns. Every nation had its own kind of way of doing things. You can definitely see it between, say, the Molot and the Izhmash Kalashnikov Concern products. Or even, say, the original Izhmash guns and the American Kalashnikov USA guns, even though they're both about the same quality overall, just the styling's a little different. Anyway, there you go. That's a direct statement backed up by Fabryka Broni, Arms of America, Atlantic Firearms, and from personal observations from a couple of blokes who have owned guns from both factories. This is the truth. Take it what you will. But I thought putting out a video just discussing this would be beneficial. And it's kind of funny. There was a similar thing years ago about Sand Sig in Switzerland. People used to claim that, they didn't have any production facilities. They were only getting parts from the USA and Germany and assembling them in Switzerland. That was patently untrue as well. They have a full production facility. And that's why you still see SIG guns, even though SIG Sauer Germany has long since shut down, and SIG Sauer USA has long since abandoned the the SIG 556 and SIG 551A1 programs. Anyway, you hear a lot of stuff, a lot of rumors about imports, and I just wanted to be clear about it. I'm not saying these these Polish guns are worth more than a Romanian gun or a Bulgarian gun. Only you can make that determination. All I'm saying is they are truly authentic Fabryka Broni products, which used to be formerly the Circle 11 factory during the communist era, and was Fabryka Broni back in the 1930s, who famously produced the excellent Vis 35 pistol, and then made some very pretty Mosin M44s. And Jay and I both are big fans of the Polish guns because they're just so darn nice. Anyway, if you came over from the main channel, I hope you kind of liked coming over here just to see my personal, my poke around. It's mostly just my interest, airplanes, sci-fi. And if you're a regular subscriber here and you haven't seen the main channel videos on the FB guns, you might check them out if you have a few extra minutes. As always, if you could, like, share, and subscribe. And feel free to post any questions in the comments below. This is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon next time.